Do you ever wonder how some people are always early in the next big narrative in crypto? How do you find the next big meme coin or know when the next meta is coming? And if you do find it, what's the strategy to allocate capital and actually take profits? In today's episode, I brought on Zeneca to give you his insights on how he was early in NFTs last cycle, early into meme coins this cycle, and what he thinks are the next big narratives. Zeneca was a pro poker player for 15 years, turned NFT and crypto trader, and he's known to be early in just about everything. He shares some great insights on this cycle and what narratives he's diving into. More importantly, he gives advice to the average person on how to set up your portfolio depending on how much time or effort you want to put into these markets. This is timeless advice from Zeneca that will help all of us make the most out of this cycle. GM, welcome to Milk Road Radio, the easiest path to get smarter about crypto. I'm Kyle Reedhead, your host for today's show, and we believe that on-chain is the next online. This is the opportunity, and we're here to help you capitalize on it. Okay, before we get into the episode, I just want to do a quick announcement. We are hiring at Milk Road, and we need to grow our team. We want to become the best place for everyone in crypto to learn and get smarter about crypto, but we need to grow our team in order to do that. So we talked about the writing roles over the last week, but we are also hiring a podcast manager and a social media manager. On the podcast side, if you live and breathe crypto, if you just absolutely love this stuff, then this is the position for you. You'll be helping us research our episodes, helping us research and find guests, and working amongst our Milk Road team that we already have to build the best podcast in crypto. On the social media side, if you love to be on Twitter, and again, you love crypto, then this is the place for you. You'll be our voice for Milk Road along with the rest of our social media team and help us grow across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc., and make our social media reach more people so we can continue to educate the masses about crypto and the Web3 revolution. So if you are interested in those positions, please check out the job descriptions in the links below in the description and pass this along to friends who you think might be good for these positions as well. All right, that's it, folks. Let's get into the episode with Zeneca. Zeneca, welcome to Milk Road Radio. It's good to have you on the show.
I almost say good to be back. I've been on the previous show, but not this specific one. Congrats on the whole Milk Road everything. It's great to see what's been happening there, and happy to be here.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited to be part of the Milk Road brand and excited to launch Milk Road Radio now. It used to be Web3 Academy is what Zeneca is referring to, and we've had Zeneca on a few times, but now first time as Milk Road Radio. Let's just get right into things. This was a wild weekend. So this episode we're recording on April 15th on Monday, but the podcast itself will come out on Wednesday on the 17th. But over the weekend, prices in crypto absolutely tanked. What was your take on what the heck was going on, and what were you watching over the weekend if you were, and did you make any changes? Did you do anything? Like, give us your sort of story of what went on the last few days here.
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin sort of, if we go back maybe a week ago, it sort of creeped up to like 70, 72K again, and people say, oh, is this the pre-hardening bull run? Is it just going to, dig ascend from here? Because you never really saw it go too crazy after it hit all-time highs. And then there was a bit of a dip down to like 69, 68, 67K. And then one morning, I was in Australia, so I woke up at 10 a.m. or something. And I just checked, as everyone does, you check the crypto prices first thing in the morning, and there's just massive drop off. And I'm like, what happened? Something clearly happened. So I go to Twitter and I go to like news sites, and it's the escalation of the war in the Middle East that everyone is sort of panicking about. Obviously, terrible stuff happening over there. And I think out of fear, prices just absolutely plummeted. And we saw a similar thing in March 2022 when the Russia-Ukraine war broke out. But I think that it's a very different situation now in terms of the crypto market side of things. We're 5 days away from halvening, a week away we were, versus being mid-halvening cycles last time. There's a lot of other positive factors for crypto, like the ETF this time around. Last time it was just very bearish. This time I think it was a buy the dip situation. I tweeted as much, and so far, it's only been another day and a bit. Prices have rebounded, but in terms of did I do anything differently? No, I just basically sat on my hands and just waited because I'm as all in it as I care to be.
Couldn't find any change underneath the couch cushions to buy the dip.
Yeah, you get to a certain point in a cycle where you're basically all in, and like I didn't feel like taking a lot of profits where we were in the market. I did sell some a few weeks back we had to buy a property, and I'm glad that I did because just fortunately happened to get out of the local top. But I basically sat on my hands over the weekend and just been watching a little bit from a distance.
Crypto markets are interesting because the escalation of the war, I think, was on Saturday when that happened, and I was kind of watching it play out as well and watching the markets completely tank like live. And, you start to get these sort of like, your emotions start to get in. You're like, shit, what's happening? Like, should I sell out? Blah, blah, blah. And then, it's funny because a lot of people were like, well, crypto market's the only market that's open, right? So like, this is the real market. And then everyone's saying that that's a good thing. And then you look at like stocks and everything, they're not open, so they didn't move. And then all of a sudden by Monday, the escalation has sort of figured itself out. They're like, okay, this isn't going to get any worse. And markets were green Monday morning. So it's kind of funny. You have this wild ride over the weekend in crypto and stocks are just like, no, everything's good. So sometimes it might be a bug that it's open 24/7, but you got to learn to manage your emotions, I guess, eh?
It's so relentless. Yeah, it's the 24/7 nonstop and the immediacy of the crypto market. Like, I saw the chart and I immediately knew something had happened because whenever news breaks, there's always a reaction to it. And it's either a small reaction or it's a massive reaction. There were a lot of people panicking, and I think, relatively rightly so. It's a fearful thing. People have a lot of money. Well, some people have a lot of money invested in crypto, and there's always the fear that, it's dropped. What if things get really bad? What if it goes down another 10%, 20%, 50%? What if alts go down 95%? I think we're getting to the point in the cycle where people have a lot of money in altcoins, which is great during a bull run because you make a lot of money. But I think everyone knows that when things start to turn, altcoins are the ones that are going to get hammered the most and be down, 70 to 99%, whereas Bitcoin, ETH, Solana might just quote unquote drop 50% or something, which is still a lot, but much better than 99%.
Absolutely. I hold a lot of the majors mainly. Most of my portfolio is that, which makes for a much less stressful situation, I think, through the cycle. But you keep mentioning this cycle, so I want to tap into that just real quick. What sort of cycle do you see this being this time around? Is it similar to the past cycles? Is it the accelerated cycle? Is it the super cycle? Like, walk me through your thoughts when you look at what we're at and what we're kind of heading into.
I think we can throw out, is it similar to previous cycles, out the window already, because it's already broken previous trends. We, reached an all-time high before the halvening. The ETF is a big X factor. Who knows? Like, the real answer is no one knows, but I don't expect this to be similar to like the last couple of cycles that we've just seen play out roughly the same way. In terms of a shortened cycle, definitely a few months back, I was thinking that's likely what we were going to get. I think based on the price action of the last few months, I'm probably leaning a little more to, I don't want to say super cycle, and everyone wants it to be a super cycle. I guess I think it'll be a really good 12 months from here. 12 to maybe 18 months, which I know is a relatively similar timescale to previous cycles, topping out late 2025. We topped out late 2021 for the last cycle. Give or take, I think like a solid 6 months. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if the top is late 2024, early 2025, and I wouldn't be shocked if it runs into 2026 as well. I know I'm basically just hedging ridiculously there, but basically I have no idea. I am bullish. Like, I'm really bullish. I know some people out there who are sort of bearish and they think, oh, the macro is looking bad and things are going to struggle and suffer. I'm sort of giga bullish on all markets. I think real estate is going to do well. I think equity is going to do well. I think gold is going to do well. I think crypto is going to do well over the next 1 to 2 years.
What makes you confident in that? Are you looking at macro side of things? Is it liquidity? Like, what is your thesis around why everything is bullish?
Yeah, there's a global liquidity chart that I think lines up nicely with a big bull run coming on now-ish. I think that there's this weird discrepancy in the world where, on the one hand, you have a housing crisis, and it's especially bad in Australia, where your real estate's gone crazy, rent prices are high, inflation's gone crazy, and a lot of people are sort of struggling to make ends meet and pay their rent and don't have that much discretionary money. But then on the other side, you have people who have been more well off financially, and they're sort of getting an abundance of money because their investments have been doing well, and real estate has gone up. Some people that own real estate now have all this extra capital and net worth. And I think that for better or worse, we're going to probably continue to see an extension of that, where I don't want to say the rich get richer and the poor get poorer or something like that, but I don't think it's a problem that's going to get solved without government intervention in a lot of ways, in terms of like putting forth sort of, I don't know if it's social reform or ways to help the housing crisis and things like that. But I think if markets are just left to do what they're going to do in like free, pure capitalist sense, then overall wealth is growing, and there are enough people with enough money that I think will keep seeing markets go up.
Right. Yeah, completely agree. So you talked 12 to 18 months for this cycle, early 2025, maybe late 2025, wouldn't be surprised either way. What happens after the fact? Is it the same sort of bear market that we had in the last couple cycles, where sort of everything just dumps like crazy? Or do you think this is where the cycle where things start to change? Or what's your sort of thesis around that?
I have, I guess, two potential outcomes, and I think they're the two extremes. So I don't think we see something like last cycle where it's, it's bad, but it's not catastrophic. Like Bitcoin drops like 60, 70%. I think we either get more towards a super cycle thing where maybe definitely altcoins will bleed and stuff like that, but Bitcoin will sort of just maybe stabilize a bit more and just slowly trend up. We have ETF money coming in. It's been really verified or validated rather as as an asset class, and people are just putting, a small percentage of their overall paycheck every month into Bitcoin, and the markets just basically go up. And it's like this kind of prolonged super cycle. The other extreme is catastrophe. I think there will be a period of darkness in the world because of the impact that AI is going to have and the amount of jobs that are going to just get completely obliterated and made redundant. And I think that whether that happens in 1 or 2 years or 4 or 5 years, it is definitely coming. To me, it seems inevitable. And I don't think industries or governments or individuals are going to be able to adapt and respond in time. And so there's going to be a period, I think, where it's just totally utter chaos, and I think markets will crash as a big response to that. So yeah, if I had to bet, I would bet on one of two extremes and probably not something similar to last cycle or more temperate.
Interesting. I completely agree with the AI side of things. I don't think it's this cycle when that happens. I think it's going to take a little bit to play out. When new technology comes, we did it all with crypto too. We think, oh, this thing's going to change the world, and then we think it's going to happen today, and then it generally takes much longer. But we'll see. Obviously, some big things happening in the AI world, but I just think it's not. I think it's going to change everything just yet. But probably, if we have another cycle, then I can definitely see it playing out there. Let's go back into this cycle and just talk about catalysts. So in 2017, we had the ICO boom and craziness, and then last cycle we had NFTs and sort of DeFi. What do you think is? Obviously the ETFs have been the catalyst, I guess, for this cycle so far. Is there something else that you see as a catalyst? I know there's a ton of narratives, and we'll talk about narratives in a second, but I mean more of like, to me anyway, and I don't know if you feel the same, but last cycle it was like NFTs brought in so many new people into the space that were not in it previously, like the artists, the musicians, the creatives, and they had to buy ETH to buy those NFTs, and so ETH went nuts, and same with DeFi stuff. And so and same with ICOs in 2017. And so I just wonder, is there that same catalyst, whatever that is, this cycle? And if there is, like, what do you think that might be?
I think it's the ETF. I think that's it. ETFs, basically. There's not that many people left to sort of get into crypto. Like it's been 10, 15 years. Everyone knows about crypto now. Everyone is, if someone was going to invest in crypto, there's not many people out there that are in the 30 years old and going, oh, I didn't really think of crypto last cycle, but this time, because of base, the layer 2, or this, ordinals, I'm going to get all in. It's like you said, it used to be for tech and finance nerds. That was crypto, basically. And then we got NFTs, and we got culture, we got musicians, we got artists, we got gamers, we got people interested in so many other things into the space. And we were all telling our friends. Like 2021, everyone that was in the space was telling everyone, and everyone in the world basically heard about NFTs. It was on every talk show, was everywhere, and people sort of saw it and had that opportunity to jump in, and people saw people making lots and lots of money. And I just don't think there are that many people left to sort of, there's not going to be a catalyst to get that many more people in, other than the ETF. The ETF is sort of like, to me, it was the last big thing that validated it as an asset class and got a lot of maybe the more conservative people, made them a little more peace of mind, thinking, hey, this is more legitimate. BlackRock's behind it, Fidelity behind it. I can just put a small percentage in as part of a diversified portfolio, and maybe it's not a scam like a lot of people might have thought. And it gave them the means of doing that as well. It used to be a little more difficult to buy crypto. You had to set up a Coinbase account or something. Like now they can just tell their asset manager or in their retirement fund or whatever, just go, yeah, I just want to buy this fund that has a small percentage of crypto. Now I think basically, I think it's huge though. I don't think we need another thing. I think the ETF is significant enough that it is the big catalyst that will push off this cycle. And then within the cycle, like you mentioned, there's so many narratives that will appeal to different people.
Yeah, even if there's no specific like new innovation, like, we had NFTs last cycle and ICOs before that, the thing that really brings people into this space is just number go up, right? As long as prices go up and people see that their friends are making money, they're like, wait, what is this thing? And they're probably not coming in from the tech, as we saw, like every cycle, they all end up leaving. They're coming in because numbers going up. And like you said, ETF is doing a really good job at helping the number go up and stay up, at least for Bitcoin. So do you think the ETF comes soon? You think May or?
I don't think May. I think it is probably going to get knocked back, and then there'll be an appeal or court case or something, and then it will get approved at some later point in time. I think last I checked, the betting markets were agreeing with that as well. It was sort of been trending down. It's 10 to 20%. Yeah, something like that, where it, a few months back it was 60, 70, 80%. And I don't think it's that big of a deal that we don't get the ETH. Just today there was it Hong Kong announced an ETF got approved. So even if America doesn't do it, other countries are doing it. And I think it will eventually happen in America. So it's kind of a matter of when, not if. And if it's not May, maybe it's later in the year or early next year.
Yeah. Hong Kong just announced approval of Bitcoin and ETH spot ETFs. So that's huge. I think South Korea is about to do the same. And then I heard the UK as well. I don't think on the ETH side for the UK, but Bitcoin as well. So yeah, the ETFs are kind of proliferating around the world, which is pretty sweet. One of my thoughts here around this cycle, and this is something I've been trying to figure out on just the timing of this cycle, is I know everyone was like, okay, accelerated cycle for sure, because we had the spot ETFs approved and it really pushed things ahead of schedule, at least compared to past cycles. If the ETH ETF got approved in May, I would be like, okay, probably accelerated cycle makes sense to me. But I agree with you. I think, I don't know, I'm a little bit more optimistic, I think, than you are that it gets approved in May. It would be out of nowhere at this point because we're getting pretty close to the date. We still haven't heard much. But I don't know, maybe it's just me holding on to my bag bias. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, let's say it doesn't. What is the catalyst for the next couple months, 6 months? I don't see much yet. We still got to get things figured out in the macro world, with inflation still looking like it's going to go higher. Although, again, I don't think that really happens. Interest rates probably aren't going to go down for a few more months at least. I'm kind of in the camp that we actually don't go too crazy for the next few months, and we actually have a boring few months, which is probably going to piss a lot of people off. Maybe we kind of crab market up and down, but I don't think we really see much for a while, which I think is what extends this bull market for us. I think it's actually a good thing. I'm not sure if you're in that camp as well, or do you think after coming out of this dip here, we're ready to take off again?
I mostly agree with you. I think I would be pleasantly surprised if we just gigasend up the halving or something like that happens. But yeah, just based on the last couple of months, the hype around the ETFs has sort of died down. We've had some negative days, and people are just getting more accustomed to it. And there's not that big giant catalyst that I think will kick off another crazy run in the immediate future. I think it'll be a more gradual thing, and then who knows what exactly will cause the next big leg up. But there's always something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be big or rational. It's just this thing that the market lashes onto. And actually, in terms of a catalyst, or maybe it's a narrative, but maybe it's a catalyst, airdrops, I think, are getting to be a much bigger deal this cycle than previous cycles. And I remember seeing a Google Trends chart of Bitcoin and ETH slowly trending upwards, and airdrops is at 100. It's everyone is, because it's just free money. And I think that will maybe get some people in that weren't in before. But no, I generally agree with you. We go sideways for a bit longer, and then hopefully at some point we just gigasend.
The airdrops, they've been amazing the last year, let's call it, since Jito, basically, which I think was December of last year or something. But it
is weird.
Yeah. It has been pretty incredible. And it's the thing for me anyway with airdrops is you get to hold the major assets like ETH and Sol and use that to get these airdrops. To me, there's no better strategy right now than just holding ETH and Sol, which still have a long way to go in this cycle, and just use that to make extra capital. It's just, the risk reward is just so massive. And everyone's trying to get into these altcoins and try to play that game, which we're going to talk about that in a second. We'll get into all these narratives. But to me, there's just nothing easier than holding Sol and ETH and using that to get, the wormhole airdrop and all these L2 airdrops and all these restaking airdrops. And it's just it can't be, it's so easy, it's wild.
It is. No, you're exactly right. I think most people are trying to be smarter than they are or be fancier than they should be.
Yeah.
And it's very alluring because it is possible, and people do it, and especially if you're on Twitter, you see all these, success stories where someone makes $1 million on a meme coin and they turn $500 into $500,000. And it happens every single day. And it's just, it's very unlikely that it's going to be you that does it. That said, if you're really working hard and smart and clued in, and you spend 12 hours a day in Discord and on Twitter, you can absolutely outperform ETH and Sol by trading in and out of coins. But the goal should always be, I think, to stack Sol, ETH, Bitcoin, and always be trying to get these airdrops. There's so many good plays. Yeah, Bitcoin is what was 3x of over the last 12 months, 3 to 4x, which most people's portfolios in 3 to 4x over the last 12 months because they had all these other random coins. And people just literally, like if I just sold everything and literally held Bitcoin, I would be up a lot more money now than if I did what I did. But everyone thinks they're smarter and diversification is a good thing. And yeah, I've come around to thinking that less is more, and just having a good portfolio of 2 to 10 coins is definitely better than trying to manage 100.
Yeah. Well, and to put things into perspective, you just said, Bitcoin's 3x over the last year. And it's like, take anyone that's not in crypto and they'll be like a 3x in a year. Like, what? Never heard of that before. And so it's also a bit of perspective. Is like, you got to manage your expectations a little bit. You don't need 100x would be great, but like, you don't need that. A 3x on a large sum of your capital is probably going to do really well for you. It could be life-changing. So it's all about perspective. All right, let's jump into some of these narratives. There's a few that I want to talk about. One, meme coins. And so we'll dive into that. I want to talk about Ordinals because I know that's an area that you've jumped into. Rune. I also want to have a conversation around NFTs and if they're ever going to come back or what your thoughts on there, because I know that was a big area for you, at least last cycle. I mean, a big area for many of us. And then we'll jump into whatever else is on your mind. Let's start on meme coins. Obviously, those have had a moment. If anything, it's kind of the big thing of this cycle so far anyway. But they got completely wrecked over the weekend, which actually I bought my first. I've never invested in meme coin. I don't even like saying invested. I never bought a meme coin, but I did it over the weekend after the big drop. I bought DGen. And so
I was going to guess that.
Yeah. It was, what's crazy is in March, I put a call out to our team. I was like, guys, I don't do meme coins, but if I was going to get one, I would get this one. And I said DGen, and it was at 0.0, I don't even know what these numbers are, 0.0003 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then it 10x'd in like 4 days, and I didn't buy it. And I was like, so I've been watching it this whole time. And so after this big dip, I bought it. But give me I don't know if you have a strategy on meme coins, but just your overall thoughts. Obviously, they dumped over the weekend. Do they come back? Do they continue to have a moment? What is your just thoughts around this, I don't know, sector, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I think meme coins are going to be massive this cycle. They were massive last cycle, but I think they're going to be bigger this cycle. Again, because people are just lured by the dreams of 100x, 1000x, and they happen every single day. They happen many times a day. They happen every hour. And they're sort of like, especially now that sort of Solana and Base and Change, where people can transact without paying $25 or $50 per transaction in gas, like people seem to have to do last cycle on the ETH mainnet. It unlocks so much liquidity and makes it so much more possible for so many more people to buy and trade meme coins. The same thesis sort of applies with meme coins, I think, as it does with regular crypto, in that the vast majority of value will accrue to like 5 to 10 tokens maximum. Same with crypto. But unlike regular crypto coins, where there's, maybe a handful of legitimate protocols that launch each week in terms of like L1s, L2s, that kind of stuff, there's 500,000 meme coins that launch a day. So it is infinitely more difficult to pick the right ones. But if you can make a lot of money. And I think that meme coin almost has this, well, it does have a negative connotation. And then there's sort of like this reframing of thinking of them as culture coins, which I think appealing. And I think that culture and even ecosystem coins, which is kind of what I would define DGen as, is a culture coin for Farcaster, a culture coin for Base, the chain, and an ecosystem coin for both of them, and a proxy coin for both of them. There's coins like that out there that take on a life of their own and really can be, I think, good investments. I've traded a lot of meme coins over the last few months. I sort of haven't done much in the last month, but sort of from November last year until, let's say, February, I was in the trenches all day, every day, and there was lots of good money to be made, but it's absolutely playing with fire. Like it really is. And you just got to go in knowing that it's insanely risky. Only put some strict limits on the amounts you're going to put in, and don't FOMO, don't chase, take profits. Like if a coin goes up a few X, still take out, everyone's dreams of the 50X, the 100X, but you do much better just stacking a couple of 2 to 3 to 4Xs and increasing your bet sizes than trying to just hold out for that massive, massive win. But yeah, I don't think meme coins slow down anytime soon.
I agree with that. You've been in the trenches. You've been playing around with these things. You said you bought hundreds of them. How do you find these things? What are you doing to get this stuff?
I haven't been doing it for the last few weeks. There's always new things and new ways people find coins, but it's literally just you wake up, you go to your computer, you're in Discord, you're in Telegram, you're on Twitter, You're just following the right people. You're in lots of Discords. You're just seeing what people are talking about. When new contracts are launched, you see what Elon is tweeting. You see what, someone else is tweeting, and people just make memes out of everything. And then you just have to it's a numbers game. I'll throw $50 in this one and $50 in this one and just spray and pray. And as you sort of just do enough of it, it's pattern recognition. It's sort of, you start to sort of get a gut sense of where momentum is, where the energy is, where the right people are, into this meme coin. Is it going to take, and you absolutely don't get it right, most of the time. But the thing with meme coins is you can put $50 in 10 of them, 9 of them can go to zero, but that 10th one can, do a 50x or even a 10x and you get your money back. So it really is a high variance numbers game. And the way to find them is just being online a lot, in lots of Discords, in lots of Telegram groups, and following lots of people on Twitter, and just constantly keeping your eyes scanning.
And looking for where the attention's going to be, right? Like, that's the thing, is like, what's the thing that's just going to catch people's attention? That's maybe it's more fun or more like, Geo Bowden and whatever, like the political coins went off because it's like, well, it's election year. People really care about politics. And so there's attention there. Yeah. Makes sense. You can't mid-curve it. Like, it's really stupid reasons, but it's like, that's the whole point of it, right? It's just where are people's attention online, and if there happens to be a token about it, probably that's the place to be. It's about as simple as that, I think.
I've mid-curved 3 tokens this cycle, and 2 of them I lost so much money on them because I got so much conviction in them. I was like, for this reason and this reason and this reason, it's gonna go crazy. The team they've done all this great stuff, and they just fell flat. The third one was DGen though, so like that one sort of paid for the other 2. Where I was like, I did a lot of research into DGen. I was like, well, all these positive things about it for forecaster reasons and base reasons and all that, but most of the time you'll be better off just left curving it.
I had a question this morning because I announced in our Discord to our community that I had bought DGen, and someone else said the same, and they're like, what's the reasonable price that you're going to exit at? And I was like, reasonable price? I was like, this thing is some random token called DGen. I was like, a reasonable price would just be to get my money back, if that. I was like, but thankfully crypto markets are not reasonable. And so for me, my strategy was, I have no idea what the price is. It's more when I think the market is overheating and we're going to have a big pullback. That's when I plan to just like get out. But I have no idea what the price of DGen will be at the time, or what the valuation. Is that sort of around the similar strategies when you look at, or you're not trying to value these things, are you?
Absolutely not trying to value. It is really market sentiment and feeling and stuff like that. But to me, the best strategy has always been, it's not all or nothing. So like if it pumps a bit, sell 10, like whenever it hits a big pump and there's a new all-time high, sell 10%, sell 15% of your bad. Then if it drops down, you can buy back in if you really want to, but then just wait. And if it goes up to hit a new all-time high, sell another 10 or 15%. That's one strategy. The other is, as soon as it does a 2x, sell half, and now you're free rolling. And then now you got your money back, and then the rest is just pure profit. It does depend on sort of how bullish you feel. It's all feeling. It's not, you can't value them. There's no real fundamentals. The closer you can get to sort of valuing them is just comparing them to other meme coins and being like, well, the market cap of Doge is this, and Pepe is this, and WIF is this. So in theory, this can hit that high if things go really crazy and stuff like that. But it really is a lot of gut feeling, and making sure to take profits along the way is the safest way to play these, in my opinion.
I imagine your experience in NFTs last cycle is giving you a lot of support and help here and advantages, I guess, in the meme coin world. Would you say that that's fair to say?
I think so, because as Kobe infamously said, NFTs are just meme altcoins or shit coins with pictures. And, he's right for 99.9% of NFTs and NFT projects. But yeah, the similar strategy to what I just mentioned is what I would do and tell people to do with NFTs is like buy 3 and then sell 1 when the price doubles, and then hold 1 for 5x and then hold 1 later. Or if you can afford to, if the price is low enough, buy 10, buy 20, buy 50, and just sort of ladder and scale out as the price goes up. So you're taking profits along the way, and it's not all or nothing. The nice thing with meme coins compared to NFTs is a lot of the time with NFTs, you only have 1. You can only afford 1. You can only afford 2. Whereas with meme coins, especially on chains where the gas costs are effectively 0, you can buy any quantity and sell 50% of it very easily at any time.
Right. It's also the problem with me with NFTs was it's just they're not as liquid, right? So you gotta hope someone's gonna buy them, and I don't know. With meme coins or just tokens in general, you can sell them anytime you want. When you can't do NFTs, I'm like, I don't know. That's scary.
Unless the meme coin rubs, which is a very very real risk in Like there's a lot of time. There's so many coins in my account, and will absolutely hate this because I'm moving back to Australia. And it's like you have to value the cost basis of every token in your wallet. I'm like, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, how's that even going to work? All right, let's talk about other narratives outside of meme coins. I mean, there's obviously a bunch happening in space. There's AI tokens has obviously been a big one. There's Ordinals has been pretty big recently. Let's talk NFTs in general, and we'll include Ordinals in here. Do you think NFTs are coming back, like the NFTs from last cycle? Or do you think Ordinals is now taking the show? Or like, what is your thoughts around this whole area?
NFTs are absolutely coming, quote unquote, back. I think what everyone said last cycle is still true, which is 99% of NFTs are going to zero. 99.99 and whatever percent of NFTs are going to zero. It's in that small fraction of a percent where a large amount of the value will accrue. Culture will accrue. Collectability will accrue. Art will accrue. There's going to be value in some NFTs. Whether the ones that sort of come back to new heights are the same ones that were at all-time highs last cycle is to be seen, but probably not. Like, I think some of them will, like CryptoPunk, Squiggles. There's a handful of ETH NFTs that I think are timeless and will do very, very, very well. Then there's a bunch that are sort of in that gray area where it's like, they did very well last cycle, they did decently well last cycle, and now they're sort of struggling, and you can very easily see them fizzle out and kind of die down over the next few years, or they could find a resurgence and hit new heights if the attention comes back to them. I mean, the technology is better than it's ever been. That's the crazy thing about NFTs, on ETH especially. It's just better than they've ever been. The technology, the ease and user experience and easeability of transacting on-chain has gotten better with better wallets and better Ethereum improvements and things like that. So NFTs are definitely going to have their day again, but for most of them, probably they'll fizzle out. Ordinals are obviously taking a lot of the attention right now. I think Ordinals is super interesting because on the one hand, they're NFTs on Bitcoin, which is, a more decentralized blockchain, the godfather of blockchains. And so a lot of people put a lot of value in that. They're storing all the data on chain, which is very cool and very valuable. But then there's no smart contracts, and it's very clunky to use, and the experience is an upgrade. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but the attention is there. So Ordinals are just going to keep going crazy, I think.
Right. For me, when I think about NFTs, like, of course, I know that they're going to continue and it's going to be an important technology in the sense of like, not necessarily trading NFTs, but just all the use cases that come with NFTs. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's extremely important. I question whether the speculative frenzy of PFPs comes back like we had last cycle. This market is generally pretty crazy, so like it probably does come back. I don't see why. Most people realized what that was, and it's like, I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense, but I mean, it's already happening over on Ordinals. Like you said, it doesn't have smart contracts, so there isn't really a way to build much utility to these things. I kind of always wonder why Ordinals is doing this, other than, I mean, there's attention. So obviously you get these sort of manias, speculative manias, but what I struggle with is there staying power with Ordinals? Other than like, sure, there's the artists that want this stuff and the art collectors that want to keep it on chain, but that's small, it's very niche. Do you think that Ordinals has something more than that? Or is it just sort of the speculative mania for a bit and then a bit of art?
I think there's definitely staying power. And I think that obviously the vast majority of it is speculative mania, and 99, I'd say with NFTs, 99.9% are going to go to zero, be worthless and junk and all that kind of stuff. But there are enough people, I think, that find Ordinals interesting, find the technology behind it interesting, find the collectability behind it interesting. I find it interesting. I think it's really cool to be able to inscribe rich data onto the Bitcoin blockchain that will live on literally forever. All of us that are bullish on Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain, imagine that, they'll live as long as humans, maybe longer than humans. It's pretty cool to, inscribe data on there that everyone who runs a node is syncing this data, and you can ostensibly own the individual Satoshi that inscribed that data or be part of that process. But again, like there's only so many Ordinals that people will find interesting and valuable. A lot of them will be the earliest ones. A lot of them will be some of the key collections that are launched already. Most of the things that have come out and will come out will, I think, be worth zero very soon.
Right.
Maybe a few years, but yeah.
There's also only a certain amount of people that will care about that, right? Like, to me, it's probably, and I don't know, you can tell me because you've been more in the ecosystem, is it mainly Bitcoiners doing this? Is it the ETH people that have moved over? I imagine it's not a lot of like new entrants that are coming over there being like, oh, I love Bitcoin and I love that the thing's going to stay there for forever and blah, blah, blah. I imagine it's the OG crew that is in this, but
yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like new retail money is flooding in and buying Ordinals. Most of the new retail seems to be buying meme coins. Obviously, there's going to be some that go over there, but I think especially new money coming in probably is approaching Ordinals with a view to just make money. Whereas there's definitely, so I would say most of the Ordinal collectors are probably ex-ETH collectors. Let's say 70%, and then 30% are like Bitcoin fans who hated ETH NFTs or ETH for whatever reasons, but now are interested in this sort of new thing on Bitcoin. And they will be the ones, I think, that will sustain most of the long-term value. We'll definitely get some people that come along in 3 years from now go, oh, this is really cool, and I have a bunch of money and I want to buy some early Ordinals or whatever. But I think, most of the people trading Ordinals today are from the ETH NFT community or the Bitcoin community.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Let's jump out of the Ordinals NFT side of things and let's talk about what's coming next. What, in your opinion, is the next meta, the next narrative? Like, what do you have your eye on? Maybe you've already started investing in it, or you've started doing your research in it, or you're just sort of like, this is your thesis on what's coming next. You haven't done much with it yet. What's kind of on your mind there?
I think up next is runes. So runes are coming out as soon as the halving happens, runes will become a thing. And so runes are basically a new token standard, if you can call it that, on Bitcoin for a way to make meme coins on Bitcoin, effectively, or new, like quote unquote ERC20s, although they don't work the same way. It's still going to be clunky and still going to be difficult, but it's basically a new token standard. I keep saying that word. It's a new thing created by the same guy that created Ordinals in the first place. This guy called Casey Rodimer created Ordinals, and then he's also created this protocol called Runes, and they come out in 5-6 days. So I think, I know a lot of people are prepping for that. A lot of people started writing a Bitcoin node themselves just to prepare for this frenzy. There's Ordinal collections that exist that are saying we're going to airdrop some Rune tokens to the holders of these collections, and those collections have hit market caps of like $500 million. And so there's a lot of money waiting for this Rune stuff, and that's definitely going to be the next big narrative. Everyone's going to hear a lot about it over the next few weeks. Beyond that, I think the thing I'm most bullish on is base season. I think Coinbase has so many users. They have their own layer 2. It works great. It has a great culture around it. Yeah, so I think that's going to be huge this cycle, and I'm sort of positioning for that. Obviously, Blast is coming out next month. The Blast token, the Blast chain is already out. A lot of people are hyped and prepping around that. So there's a bunch of things. Gaming is going to take off. Maybe a lot of angel investing and seed rounds and stuff like that is getting democratized now, where almost anyone can get access to them. So that might take off. But yeah, Runes is the immediate thing.
Okay, let's dive into this Runes a little bit more, because it's actually, I haven't really heard much about this, but we're about to start doing more deep dives on the Bitcoin ecosystem, because there's actually a lot happening there. I mean, there's Ordinals, sure, there's this Runes coming out. The L2 ecosystem is actually starting to blow up.
Yeah.
Runes is not on L2s though, is that correct? It's on just the base chain? Or I
believe so. I'm far from an expert on Runes, but yeah, I believe it's just on Bitcoin.
Okay. Yeah, I think Bitcoin, at least in its ecosystem for L2s, for Runes and stuff, is something that's still slept on for a lot of people in the space, at least in like the ETH world, the Solana world. And I do think that a lot of attention goes there, assuming these L2s actually launch and are like useful. That's the thing, is I don't really know. I've never used them. I don't know a lot about them. We're actually getting the Stacks team on the podcast soon just to like pick their brains and see what's really going on here. But I'm hearing a lot of rumblings from people in the space that are like, Bitcoin is probably the next meta, which is really funny to hear. And like pay attention to the Bitcoin ecosystem. I was like, what? So outside of Runes, are you looking into much else going on there? Are you looking at the L2s or any of that kind of stuff? Or the DeFi? There's a lot of DeFi stuff kind of getting hyped up.
Yeah. I'm not really, but not for lack of sort of conviction in it. So I'm hearing a lot of things about it. I remember after ETH Denver, I spoke to a bunch of people and they said the biggest thing they heard about it, ETH Denver, was Bitcoin and as the Bitcoin ecosystem. One of the other things was Base, which was kind of cool to hear as well. But yeah, like there's so much activity happening. It sort of revitalized and rejuvenated the Bitcoin and divided the Bitcoin community in many ways as well. But yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest spaces to watch over the next few months and beyond.
Interesting. I did not think coming into this year, or I guess more last year, that we'd be talking about Bitcoin again and we'd be, that's where the meta is. Like,
Yeah.
just, that was not on my radar for sure. But Base was. Base is one that I have been watching for a while, and was like, to me, it makes complete sense, right? They've done a really good job on improving that chain and building a big ecosystem there. And then just having, obviously, the connections in with Coinbase just makes it such an easy UX to like move from there. Even when I tried to buy DGen, I couldn't buy it on Coinbase because I had some assets that were on there that I just wanted to get rid of. And so I was going to put it in. And what did it tell me to do? It like pushed me to go and push it over to my Coinbase wallet and buy it on Base. And I was like, it was so easy and intuitive. And one of the things I think of now is a lot of people are calling Solana the retail chain. It's the spot for meme coins, which like it has been without a doubt. And it's done a pretty good job, except for the last couple of weeks. But I think that'll get fixed. So I'm still super bullish on Solana and have been for a while. But I actually have this thesis that Base might take over. I think Solana is going to be like, Solana has a moat around like DePIN and probably a lot of AI stuff because like there's just things that you can't do anywhere else. Like Solana's performance is just so far ahead of Base and every other chain that exists. And so like they actually do have a moat on DePIN. They don't have a moat on meme coins, I think, though. And just like the casino, let's call it. And so I'm interested to hear more about your thoughts around Base. Like I think Base ends up becoming the retail chain over the next year, at least the retail chain for the Western world, because most people in the US and other countries around, like, we're using Coinbase. And so it makes sense that when the retail all comes back, which I don't think they're quite here just yet, at least the bulk of them, they're going to come onto Coinbase, they're going to put their assets there, and then they're going to get pushed just from Coinbase's UX over to Base anyway. And so I actually think that that becomes the real retail chain. Not sure what your thoughts are around that, or maybe you have some other maybe thoughts around the Base chain.
I largely agree. I'm extremely bullish on Base for all the reasons that you just said. I think there'll be basically two retail chains. I think Solana is still going to do really, really well because, like you said, there's so much you can do there. Like even on Base, as it gets more users, the transactions, even though it's a layer 2, they will start costing more and more. There was a point a week ago, a few weeks back, where I paid several dollars for a transaction on Base, which is kind of nuts. Now it's down to like less than 1 cent again, I think, for most transactions. But as it ramps up and gets busy, it's still a layer 2 on top of Ethereum, and it will still only be able to transact so many times per second for a certain price. So there are a lot of people that even trading meme coins and spending 50 cents for a transaction is prohibitive. Whereas Solana, it's like 0.001 cents or something crazy, where you can really do a lot of things that you can't do on Base. So, but yeah, I think both will be retail chains. I think Base is gonna win the L2 wars of Ethereum. It's, to me, the writing is on the wall. Doesn't mean there won't be other L2s that are successful and around and relevant. There will be, but Base will, I think, just run away with it. Coinbase is just so big. Most people underestimate how big it is. Yeah.
I agree. And I mean, Base is already dominating in almost every metric. The only one is it hasn't surpassed and became number one is TVL, but it is skyrocketing TVL. So I think it's going to pass Arbitrum and Optimism pretty quickly, which is pretty wild because Arbitrum and Optimism have had, 2 years on Base. So yeah, to me, that's pretty crazy, but I think they're going to do it. Okay. This was a lot of narratives, a lot of things. People listening to this podcast are probably like, holy shit, how do you keep on top of all this? And I think literally
with great difficulty.
With great difficulty. One of the things I wanted to discuss, when I look through your Twitter feed, Zeneca, I see you talk a lot about perspective and expectations and more like the psychological side of investing and less of the like, here's the meta and get in this Discord and do this. But a lot of your advice, even on this podcast today, were like, you need to be in all these things. But for most people, that's so much to figure out. It's so much to handle. And like, it means you're on your phone all day. It means you're in Discord all day, your computer all day. And I think part of that is like, great, but you got to do the research, but also that's hard to just like manage. How do you sort of balance, right? Like, how do you work on being in the know with everything and all these narratives, but still like not lose your mind? Do you have any advice?
I do lose my mind. Yeah. This is something I'm still struggling with. I've struggled with my whole life is just sort of finding that right work-life balance and balance in life. And I think I used to be a professional poker player before crypto and everything. I did it for about 15 years. And what I would always do for like 4 months, I'd just play 16 hours a day, insane amounts. I get fully burned out. I wouldn't be able to play for a few months, and then I'd do the same thing again. That cycle basically repeated my entire poker career, and I think has largely repeated to a lesser degree throughout crypto, where I'll just go absolutely crazy and be on my computer for 16 hours a day for ages, and then I'll get burned out. And like, I'm sort of going through that phase over the last month where maybe it's combined with a bit of travel or something, where I'm just like, if I can't spend that much time, I find it very difficult to just spend like an hour a day in Discord, and like it's very difficult for me to find that sort of balance. So I'm trying to figure out my strategy moving forward and thinking about how I want to spend my time and what I want to be doing. And I think everyone needs to think about that for themselves, because for the vast majority of people, the best strategy for crypto is just to dollar cost average into like Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, maybe and stake it and just keep an eye on it. You spend an hour or 5 hours a week maximum checking in, maybe light airdrop farming if you can be bothered. And then, maybe selling a bit when things look really frothy and just that is the best strategy for most people. Problem is most people think that they can beat the market and they can't. Like if 95% of people think they can beat the market, then most of them are going to be wrong. I think some people think that it's a 50-50 thing where like, all right, half the people are going to beat the market and half the people aren't. That's not how it works. It's a liquidity thing where maybe 2% of people can beat the market and they get the liquidity from the other, 90 whatever percent or 50%. So yeah, again, like if you're married, if you have kids, if you have a demanding job, if you're taking care of someone, it's like really think about what you want to be doing, because the worst thing most people can do is half-ass it and be like, all right, I want to be trading meme coins. And then they just see a tweet and they get FOMO. It's like, all right, I'm going to buy that because I missed out on the last one. And then they can't follow the chart, because with meme coins, a lot of the time, you need to be so many times I've bought a coin, I've gone to sleep, and over the night, it's done at 10x, but then it's back down at 0. I was like, you have to be watching the chart to sell at the right times. And so most people should just have a boring strategy. It's unsexy. We were talking about it before. Bitcoin did a 3x in a year. It's like, there is tremendous money to be made in crypto just being boring. And it lets you have that work-life balance. It lets you touch grass and spend time with your family and loved ones, because at the end of the day, what are most people in crypto for? To make money. Why do they want to make money? It's to spend time with loved ones and enjoy themselves. And I think most people, myself included, a lot of the time find ourselves glued to a screen for a long amount of time, and then you get anxious and stressed out, and your bag starts dumping overnight and you feel terrible, and it's like, at what cost?
So a couple things that I want to pull on there. One is the boring portfolio, which like in the boring strategy is just, it actually makes life so much easier. When you have the things that happened over this weekend, it didn't matter, right? It mattered if you were in a bunch of shit coins that probably, went to 0 over the weekend. But if you're in just Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol, like it's fine, right? The chains didn't break. Everything's all good. The technology is going to continue regardless of if there's war, if there's not war. If anything, war, like long-term, is probably a good thing for, blockchains, right? Because it's a solution for many. And I'm not saying war is a good thing by any means, but just saying it's right. Technology and adoption helps.
No, it is.
It helps.
Touch on that. After the Ukraine-Russia war, a lot of Russians had their bank accounts frozen, including people that did nothing wrong. It was just the government didn't want them taking their money out of Russia, or they were spying on people and basically saying, if you are donating to Ukraine using your bank account, then, we're going to come and get you. Blockchains fix that problem, and they allow people to have ownership over their funds, which is monumentally important in the world.
Exactly. And so like any chaos ends up being a good thing long-term for crypto, because it's solving a lot of those issues. And then the other thing I think you said that was important is like for people to realize you either do the boring portfolio or you need to go all in on the other side of things, because it is PvP. It is player versus player in these markets, right? And like you said, 1-2% of people actually end up winning. It is not like, half win here. You don't get a ribbon for participating. You get wrecked if you participate and you don't go all in and you don't win this. And look at who you're playing up against. Like, Zeneca says he goes all in and goes like 16 hours a day where he doesn't leave his computer when he's like fully into it. And he does it for as long as it takes for him to get burnt out. Like this is the competition. And so I try to tell people all the time, like, unless you're doing that, there's no point in being in the middle. There's a small chance you're going to just beat the boring portfolio, right? Solana's done I don't even know. It's started at $8 like earlier in the bear market. And like it's a 20x. ETH has done however many X, Bitcoin's done however many X, like, and you didn't have to do anything for those. A little bit of research and just build a little bit of conviction. And it's that easy. So I don't know. Unless you're going all in, I really don't see a point in being somewhere in the middle. So I think that's actually a really good takeaway from this. Okay, one more question before we wrap up. And I want to go back to the very beginning where we talked about cycles. And you said, we're sort of 12 to 18 months. And you said you don't want to be in any of these altcoins and these narrative plays. You probably want to be in the majors we just talked about, or you might want to be completely out of the market at that point in stables. Stables is probably the best bet there. What are you looking at to say this is finally the top? This is where we're heading into the big bear market, whether it's a long drawn out one or not. what are you sort of looking at to say, okay, we've reached the top of the cycle and it's time to change things up?
I mean, GCR to tweet. GCR is this prolific tweeter who basically called the top of last cycle. I think that it's really, really tough. Like, it's impossible to know. So I think my strategy is basically just, as things get crazier and frothier, is just to slowly start selling. And similar to what I said before about a meme coin, where you take 10, 15% off when things go crazy, take some profits every time things start to seem really, really, really crazy. That's one. Another is, everyone talks about the classic quote unquote top signals, which are usually some cringe social media culture moment when it just seems like everyone is talking about crypto. And we saw that last cycle with people going on Tonight shows, or was it Budweiser and Pepsi and stuff, tweeting at each other on Twitter. And there's things that in hindsight are like, yeah, okay, that was kind of toppy and frothy, and trying to keep an eye out for things like that. It is very hard to do in the moment, but that's another one. A lot of it's gut feeling. I think that it's just it's hard if it's your first cycle. It's very, very, very difficult. The thing about bull markets, this is the crazy part, is that no one thinks it's a top when it's a top. Like, there's such mania, and everyone thinks that it's different this time, because last time it was like super cycle and NFTs, and like, oh, now we have culture, and now we have artists and musicians, and the gamers are into crypto and in a way that they weren't before. And this time it's the ETF, and people are going to be saying, well, this is going to go on forever, because there's just a small percentage of wealth coming in every single day, every single week, every single month. There's always some narrative that no one is saying it at the time. That's the crazy part. That's why it's so difficult. So I think have a strategy in mind beforehand, and basically either set some sell targets and say, all right, when my portfolio hits this amount, I'm going to sell 50%. Or if this asset, if Bitcoin hits 120K, I'm going to start selling. Or if it hits 100K, I'm going to start selling. Maybe it was 70K for some people. Set those in advance, because when it gets there, you always think, oh, it's just going to go up some more, right? Like, it's hard to feel bearish when everyone else is bullish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this goes back to the advice you were just giving of trying to pull yourself out of markets a little bit and just focus on balance, touch grass, and get out of it a little bit, because it allows you to be a little bit more rational. And in hindsight, like, if you were thinking a little more rationally last cycle, should have been pretty obvious when we were at the top with all those things that were happening, right? But when you're in it every day and you don't take a second to take a breath and get out of it, you're just kind of like, yeah, this is normal. This is just crypto now, right? Like, this is just life. And it's like, well, probably not. That's probably not just life, right? But it's hard to sort of separate yourself from that. Good advice all along. You're currently in Dubai. You just flew to Dubai from Australia, and you're going to Token 2049, which I think is all week. I guess you just flew in, so you don't have like a vibe check just yet. But what are you most excited for? What's happening there that you're aware of so far?
Ooh. There's so many events. Like, there's hundreds of events this week. I'm excited just to meet people. Like, there's a bunch of friends and acquaintances that I've known and met that I'm excited to see, but also that I've only interacted with online and that I'm really looking forward to seeing here. There's so many talks and there's so many side events and stuff like that, which a lot of them are going to be great. But I personally, maybe hate's a strong word, but I just like, big events where there's loud music and hundreds of people, or even dozens of people. I much prefer to meet people in groups of like 2 to 5 over lunch or coffee, or I'm just trying to set up as many of those meetings as I can. And then, I'll definitely be at the event. I'm speaking on a couple of panels, and I'll just talk to people around and after that. But mostly I'm just looking forward to just the week, Token 2049. And then right after it, there's this thing, Art Style Fest, which is a little more of a fun culture event. It's just really a good one.
Cool. Awesome. Well, enjoy that. Zeneca, for the listeners that want to follow along more and follow along your journey, where can they find you on the interwebs, and where should they follow?
Twitter is probably the best, at Zeneca, or Farcaster at Zen, which is now taking off. And I'm trying to spend more time on Farcaster because I just believe in it philosophically. Decentralized social media, to me, is the future. It's breaking all sorts of records already. I think it's going to be a big deal.
Interesting. I think you're the first person, when we asked this question, to shill their Farcaster. So that's really cool. I hope that's a trend that continues. Bullish degen.
It is bullish degen. The telling moment will be when someone only shills their Farcaster, or shills it first, and then be like, oh, I should probably give you my Twitter as well, in case there's still some people over there. But everyone's on Farcaster now, so it's going to happen more. I'm sure of it.
Awesome. Well, Zeneca, thanks so much for joining us here on Milk Road Radio. We'll definitely have to get you back on later on in the cycle to see where things are at and what narratives you're running down at that point. But again, thanks for joining. Really, really appreciate it. And some really good advice.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was a fun conversation.
Thank you for listening to Milk Road Radio, the easiest path to get smarter about crypto. If you like this episode, share it and hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, then we'll leave a link to Milk Road Pro as well, your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this podcast is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Crypto is risky, so you should never invest more than you're willing to lose. Thank you, friends, and we'll see you in the next one.